Hello everyone, this is Mr. Mola for lesson 7.5, factoring x squared plus bx plus c. And you'll see tomorrow we'll do something where we add a coefficient in front of the x squared that makes it a little more difficult. So pretty much we're doing the opposite of what we've been doing. So now you'll see on the homework, they'll give us this part, and we need to say what was in the parentheses to get that. And there's a couple different ways to think of it. Again, the book has a couple of different ways, and I have my way. So here they have us looking at what the answer is. So there's an x squared there, there's 5 x's, then there's 2 x's there, or 3 x's there and 2 x's there to get the 5, and then 6 plus signs right there to get the 6. So you could do it this way and kind of work like that. Well, the only way to get to x squared is x and x, and then to get from x to 3x, you need a 3 here, and then to get from x to these 2 x's, you need a 2 here. So this is what your parentheses would look like. It would be x plus 3 and x plus 2. And that would get you x squared plus 5x plus 6. That's one way to do it. Another way, they want you to think of it as a width and a length. So kind of think of it like that. Kind of the same thing then. I like pretty much just kind of writing out the possibilities here. So I'm going to write down all like the cheat sheets here. So I'd probably write this down somewhere if it's not already in your notes. So if I have a formula and the answer looks like this, in my opinion, these are the easiest ones. We're paying attention to the signs here. It says plus, it says plus. So that means in your parentheses, it's going to be plus and plus. You need 2 numbers that multiply to this last number, so multiply to x, and then you need to add those 2 numbers and add them to get that b in front of the x there. So multiply to get the last number, add to get the middle number. Okay, that's only if it is 2 plus signs there. Okay, the other way that it could be written is if we have x squared minus bx plus c. This might seem a lot harder, but it's actually not that bad. Since I know that I have a positive sign here and those 2 numbers are being multiplied, I know that in my parentheses I should have 2 subtraction signs. And then the same thing, we're looking for something to be multiplied here to get to c, and we're looking for something to be added here to get to that b number. So these are the 2 easier of the scenarios. The only other way that this gets harder is if we do something like this. Now with this, it's kind of tricky because you have a negative c, so that means you need to have 1 positive, 1 negative. So still 2 numbers that multiply to get that, and a positive times a negative gives you a negative, so that's why it's multiplied. But this b becomes the trickier part. You still need to add the 2 numbers, but now the 2 numbers need to be negative. So you kind of need to think, if I add these 2 numbers, will I get a negative correct answer or a positive answer, which it might be the same number, but there's a difference between positive and negative. And then kind of along those lines as well, you could have x squared plus bx minus c. And this looks also very similar to the green there. You're going to have 1 plus sign, 1 minus sign. Same thing, you're figuring out 2 numbers that multiply to that last number, and same thing here, 2 numbers that add to that middle number. And then again, now notice that middle number is positive. So you're going to need to take into account which signs or which number goes with which signs. On the first 2 in the black and the red, you don't really care about which number goes with which sign because they're both positive in the black and they're both negative in the red. Okay, so let's try some problems here so we can kind of see. So number 1, both positive, so we like that. So I know my parentheses are going to start off with both positives. Okay, the only way to get to c squared is c and c. So I need 2 numbers that multiply to 7. So 2 numbers that multiply to 7. Doesn't look like an x there. And when I add them, I get 8. Luckily here, there's really only one way that you can multiply to 7, and it's 7 and 1, or 1 and 7. Again, doesn't really matter because they're both positive. So whether you multiply it one way or the other, you're still going to get a 7c and a 1c. And when you add those together, you get 8c. Okay, and you could always double check these and FOIL and see, like c times c is c squared, c times 1 is 1c, 7 times c is 7c, 7 times 1 is 7. Add these together, and you get this. Okay, so those are the same like they should be. Okay, but this is going to be our answer here, the c plus 7 and the c plus 1. Okay, let's do another one, adding 1. So a squared plus 16a plus 64. So again, I know the only way to do this is a plus and a plus. So a times a will give me a squared, 2 plus signs because I have 2 plus signs here. And then same thing, think of two numbers that multiply to 64. When you add them, you get 16. So there's a couple different ways that multiply to 64. I can do like 64 and 1, 32 and 2, 16 and 4. So all those multiply to 64, but 64 plus 1 is not 16. 32 plus 2 is not 16. 16 plus 4 is not 16. The only way that I can think of this is doing is 8 and 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 plus 8 is 16. And if we double check our math like we did in number 1, it would work out to end up being, yes, that's the right answer. Okay, 3. So again, we like these 2 plus problems. So x plus, and then same thing, two numbers that multiply to 18. And when you add them, you get 11. A couple different ways we could multiply to 18, 18 and 1, 9 and 2, 6 and 3, but 18 and 1 is 19. 6 plus 3 is 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. So x plus 9 and x plus 2 would give us our right answer there. Okay, we'll do one more of these plus ones. Let's do number 4. So same thing, we have a plus, so I know it's going to be d plus something and d plus something. Okay, so we have the number 8, so two numbers that multiply to 8 and add to 6. So only two ways I can think to multiply to 8 are 8 and 1. So 8 times 1 is 8, but 8 plus 1 is 9, not 6. And then we have 4 times 2. 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 plus 2 is 6. So that works out. So my parentheses should say d plus 4 and d plus 2. All right, so these other ones down here, 7 through 12, are a little trickier here. These would be the tougher of the problems, I would say, for today, because we really need to pay attention to what the signs are here. So I know I'm going to have a b plus something and a b minus something, so I need to pay attention. So which two numbers multiply to 54, and when I add them, give me a positive 3b. There's a couple different ways I can multiply to 54. I can do 54 and 1. Or now I got to think about signs. So positive 54 and negative 1. Negative 1 and positive 54. But neither of those give me 3. Positive 54 plus negative 1 is positive 53. Negative, I just wrote those the same. So negative 54 and positive 1. There we go. This gives me positive 53. This gives me negative 53, neither of which are 3. Okay, so another way I can multiply to 54, I can do something like 27 and 2. So I can do a positive 27 and a negative 2, or a negative 27 and a positive 2. But again, if I add those together, this gives me 25, this gives me negative 25, doesn't give me 3. So we got to keep thinking, well, how else can we multiply to 54? And we end up thinking and thinking and thinking, and we end up with the numbers 9 and 6. 9 times 6 is 54. And now we have to think, is positive 9 and a negative 6, when I add them together, does that give me a positive 3b? Or if I do negative 9 and a positive 6, when I add those together, does that give me a positive 3b? And it's going to end up being that first one. Positive 9 and a negative 6 give me a positive 3. If I have a negative 9 and a positive 6, that gives me a negative 3. So I know that my positive sign has to go with the 9, and my negative sign has to go with the 6. So this is the only way this could be written. Unlike the first 6 that we did, where it didn't matter where the numbers were because they were both positive, this matters. You need to have b plus 9. You could rewrite it and do like b minus 6 here and b plus 9 here. That doesn't matter, as long as the positive sign goes with the 9 and the negative sign goes with the 6. But it doesn't matter which one comes first, as long as the signs are there with it. All right, let's look at number 9. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to 18, and now when I add them, give me a positive 3. Okay, so again, I know I'm going to have a u plus and a u minus. So two numbers that multiply to 18. There's a couple different ways we can multiply to 18. We could do 18 and 1. We can do 9 and 2. We can do 6 and 3. And it looks like 6 and 3, the difference of those two is 3. So I'm going to use those two numbers. Except now I have to think again, do I want a positive 6 or a negative 6? And since I have a positive 3 there, positive 6 plus a negative 3 gives us the positive 3. So u plus 6 and then u minus 3. Let's look at one more like that. So h plus something and h minus something. And now my number is 24. So two numbers that multiply to 24. And when I add them, I get 2. So I could do like 24 and 1. Not going to give me 2. 12 and 2. Not a difference of 2. But 6 and 4 is a difference of 2. So positive 6 and negative 4. Yep, that does give me the negative 2. Let's do 12 actually, because that one has a negative 3. So that one's going to be a little different. So f plus and f minus. Different ways to get to 40. I can do 10 and 4, 8 and 5, 40 and 1. And we're going to be looking at 8 and 5 because the difference of 8 and 5 is 3. So f plus a positive 5 and f minus 8. So negative 8 times 5 still gives me that negative 40. And then negative 8 plus 5 gives me that negative 3. So make sure you're really paying attention to the signs there of what it is. And then on this back page, they try to mess you up. I don't know what the point is here. They just put in equals 0, things like that. Or like here, they have equals 30. So then just subtract 30 from each side and then rewrite it with that. I don't know really why they do this on these problems. It's really just the same thing. But let's look at some of these because now this is the plus sign there at the end. So I know that this is going to be a g minus and a g minus because a negative number and a negative number will multiply to a positive number. So two numbers that still multiply to 40 and add to a negative 13. So that's going to be a negative 8 and negative 5. Negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. Negative 8 plus negative 5 is negative 13. Okay, same thing here. So k minus, k minus. So two numbers that multiply to positive 6, but when you add them, give you a negative 5. So 3 and 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5. Here we have w minus. And then here we have a positive 10. So two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 7. So negative 5 and 2. So once you figure out these, you're doing the same thing that we did last section and figuring out what the answer is. So g minus 8 equals 0. So add 8, add 8. So 8 is one of our answers for number 13. G minus 5 equals 0. Add 5, add 5. So 5 is our answer there. So g equals 5, g equals 8. If I plug in 8 or 5 for either of those g's, it will end up equaling 0. And then same thing here. So k minus 3 equals 0. Add 3, add 3. So one possible answer to make that equation equal 0 is 3. Or the same thing here, k minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to each side. So k equals 2. So again, if you plug in 2 or 3 to that problem, you would end up getting 0. And then the last one here, w minus 5 equals 0. So add 5 to both sides. So w equals 5 is one answer. And then w minus 2 equals 0. So add 2 to each side. So 2 could be your other answer. So pretty much the same thing as what we did on the last page, except they want you to take it a step further. Like I said when we started the problem, I don't know why they're throwing this stuff in there, because that's really just testing whether you can factor and then set it equal to 0.